Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Talking Triathlon. It's in the name. We talk about triathlon. By we, I mean myself, Tim Ford, and that guy, James Bale. Jimbo, mate, it's been a good week in triathlon for me. How about you? What's going on?
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. We got
Bring the mood up a little bit. Come on.
yeah, no, life is good. Life is good. I'm very busy at the moment. There's a lot happening, a lot of travel, a lot of moving pieces. But yeah, before we get into the deep and dark of triathlon, life is okay. I'm chipping away. I've got a real problem with my hip when it comes
Oh
to running
no,
at the moment.
it's gone real
Um,
bad, is it now?
it's gone real. I ran 25K on Saturday in Lyon.
Jesus Christ.
And then tried to run on Tuesday and just couldn't. So at the moment, I'm limping from one long run to the other, just kind of maintaining it. I think I'm changing the London Marathon approach very much into a just run a marathon, enjoy the day, and then go for some beers.
Yeah, fuck.
Nice
I'm
and
really
gentle, nice and slow.
genuinely sorry to hear that, mate. I didn't realize it had gotten to that point. Here I am talking about how good things are, and it's like, oh no, your marathon's in jeopardy, so that's not good.
No, it's all
Uh,
good. I'll get over it again. I made the mistake. The mistake I made, the normal mistake people make, is having had this hip injury a year ago, doing all the rehab to get rid of it going away, feeling
Stopping
normal,
the
and
rehab.
thinking it was solved, and stopping doing the single leg work and all that stuff. So I think I just have to remind myself that for the rest of my life, I need to do single leg work 3 times a week. It's
I think
fucking boring.
that's, to be honest, pretty good advice for most triathletes, though. To be honest,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, yeah.
No, it's good to hear.
How's
I
things your
was
end?
great, really, really, really great. I was in New Zealand over the weekend for Ironman New Zealand. I had two of my clients, Mike Phillips and Joe Skipper, racing, and the boys went one and two. So
Pointless
I
trip
was,
on it. They didn't do very well, did they?
nah, mate, it was a waste of time. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, you've been to Taupō. It is wonderful. Like, what a wonderful place. I got to catch up with a really, really good friend of mine, Mike Robinson, and just a whole bunch of, I used to go to New Zealand 2 times a year to race. I used to spend a lot of time there. I haven't been there since 2020. So it was great to get back. It was great to catch up with so many people and, yeah, obviously see the boys, go. I mean, Mike, third time. Mike's coming on this, what people will know because it's in the thing. I'm going to interview Mike after we've recorded this. But, the third win, breaking the course record the way he did. Just and the joy seen, after the race was something special. And then obviously with Joe, everybody knows that Joe's been through the ringer the last sort of 12 to 18 months, and just the relief to see him execute a really great race was brilliant. And again, the sort of I've spent a fair bit of time with Joe post race and had some chats and everything, and I think it's definitely that sort of shot in the arm that he needed to get that, I guess, confidence back really. So yeah, it was great. Really, really good trip to New Zealand. As I said, I really love Taupō. I think if anybody here is a triathlon, and I'm not talking as a fan of the sport, but I mean, you do it, you need to make that a bucket list race, whether it's 70.3 or Ironman. Race day, I went for a run, just like, 8K along the water, turned around, came back, and it is magic. What a magical place. And yeah, I had an absolute
Yeah,
bust.
it's a good part of the world,
I'm
isn't it?
buzzing, mate. I'm buzzing.
And they love their race as well. They turn out for it.
Yeah, the whole town fully supports the event, which is really, really great. Like, really, it's still got a mass start too, which I like. I think it's the only Ironman in the world that still does the mass age group start, and they've got the big cannon that they. I mean, I honestly, I had such a great day. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit, but no, other than that, yeah, I don't know, just plugging away, training again, back to training. Starting to run well, which is nice. Start to feel like I'm an actual, maybe can run a little bit, which is good. And saw my train piece. My race is only 19 weeks away now, and it's sort of been 20 something for so long. I'm going, okay, better start getting serious about that. So that's good. Yeah, that's sort of it for me. If people want to get, I guess, the biggest scoop, because we will be doing a bonus episode very, very soon, head to patreon.com/talking triathlon, where you get all the stuff we do, $5 a month, the WhatsApp group, which has been absolutely going off the hook lately, and I'm sure people will understand why as we talk about the big topic we are going to discuss this week around Imogen Simmonds and the doping case that came out after we recorded last week. But yeah, you get the bonus show, the WhatsApp group, Strava group, all that stuff. Yeah, it supports us. We really, really appreciate it. Jimbo, should we just get straight into it? Should we go straight to the thing we didn't get discussed last week? I know you touched on it with Daniel, but should we just get straight into
Yeah,
Imogen
briefly
Simmonds?
touched on it with Daniel. We got the curse of the podcast last week, didn't we? Because we published the day after we recorded, and in that time, news broke that Imogen Simmonds has
Provisionally
been
suspended is the
provisionally
correct term.
suspended because A and B sample have come back positive for a drug with a performance
Ligandrol.
enhancing banned substance.
Ligandrol. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it properly, but Ligandrol, something like that.
Yeah.
That's now. I have got the Chat GPT summary of what the drug does because before we hit record, I said, "Do you know anything about this drug?" You said, "Nope." So, what does it do? It increases muscle mass without the severe side effects of anabolic steroids. It speeds up recovery after intense training. It improves bone density, making it appealing for injury prevention. And why is it banned? It's a performance enhancement. It can provide unfair strength and endurance benefits, health risks. It may cause hormonal imbalances, liver issues, and other side effects. And WADA classifies it as a prohibited substance under category S1 as an anabolic agent. So, what's there to say? Imogen Simmonds came out and said that I believe it was on December 8th, she was tested in the lead up to the 70.3 World Championships. I believe it was she'd been
Hmm.
tested twice or something. Like it was there were two tests quite close together.
Yeah, I think so. I've got a full statement here, which I could just read out so we get the details right.
Maybe
But
just if there's any little key bits you want to, because again,
yeah,
it's
so
quite
she
lengthy.
was 8th of December, randomly drug tested, and the test came back positive for a metabolite of Ligandrol, a pictogram levels. Um, she had no idea what the substance was or how it could got into a system. She sought counsel, instruction of a legal team, so she submitted hair samples. Um, Hers came back negative, but her partner had sample came back positive. Considering the timeline of events, that she had a negative doping control test 6 days earlier and 22 days after. And then she said, this is the bit where she brings in the reason, the rationale. She said her and her partner engaged in intimate relations both of the day of and the day before the 8th of December 2024 doping control test. My legal team have concluded that this is how the substance got into my system via the transfer of bodily fluid. And then she goes on to ask for privacy and stuff like that, and to let it play out. And she's going to be working through a legal process to establish her innocence.
Now, before we discuss this, I suppose I have to get a few disclaimers. I suppose we always try to be as transparent and things as possible. I have known Imogen personally for probably close to 10 years. I used to train with Imogen and race with Imogen in Phuket before she was a pro athlete. I'm also a former sponsor of hers. We, as Phoenix, sponsored Imogen for 2 years. So I have had a lot of dealings with Imogen, both personally and professionally. And I just want to get that out so that take what I say with a grain of salt. Don't take what I say with, I just want people to, I guess, understand the context that I'm not talking about this purely. Obviously, I always try to be as objective as possible, but just please be aware that I have had a personal and professional relationship with Imogen in the past. I wouldn't say I'm close to Imogen I don't have, we're not mates to just pick up the phone or anything like that, but I have had a lot to do with her in the past before we chat about this. But I mean, the first thing, my first immediate two thoughts with this is first, great that the testing seems to be working, and fucking hell, not again. they're my
Yeah,
they're my two
there's one
thoughts.
section I missed out, that I just want to put some meat on those bones. She said that unknown to me, she discovered that unknown to her, her long-term partner had been ingesting this substance to help improve his own personal physique around the time of the positive test. Hence why they're saying that through intimate contact, the substance was passed on to her, and that's why she had those levels in her system for that test.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack, and again, I also think it is important that we are in the middle of a process. Nothing has, yes, she has been provisionally suspended. As we have said, there's an ongoing process happening. So we're not going to sit here and make any declarative statements. That's not what we do on this podcast. We're I guess just going to try to discuss it. But uh, I believe it's worth mentioning that there are previous cases of this where the drug being passed through sexual contact or sexual acts, intimate contact, however you want to they be doing some stuff together, however you want to put it. is a historic. There's historical cases of that. So, I mean, I remember, and I'm not implying anything here, but I do remember when Thomas Rodriguez tested positive for that drug. I put in like, what's an excuse you can use for this drug being in your system? And to ChatGPT, and the first one was chicken and eggs. And I think that you'd probably find something similar with this drug. And again, I'm not implying that's what Imogen did, but this is clearly a very delicate thing. And I also think it's important to note that if this turns out not to be the case, which I'm not sure, this is going to be very like this is a person's life and career. I just think it's
Yeah.
worth saying that.
That's
I
the thing.
guess just
We
as
got to remember, as with all these doping cases, there is a human at the end of it,
yeah,
and there is a human at the end of it, irrespective of whether they doped intentionally or not. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
And that's a very important thing to remember.
yeah,
Just because someone, if they have broken a rule intentionally, doesn't take away the wear and weight that it's going to have on their mental health in this moment. You know,
correct.
they made their own bed, but we have to be
Cognizant,
cognizant.
cognizant.
There's the word, cognizant of
God, you get
that.
the fancy words on
Um,
this podcast, don't you?
you do, you do. Unpronounced badly.
Correct.
Um, Now look, take whether the excuse, the reason, the rationale or not is true out of it. I mean, let's assume that is true for a moment, just for this little segment. Assume that is what happened. It was she didn't know her partner was taking this. He was taking it. It got into a system through that. I mean, fuck me. If you are that can be the reason, but it doesn't mean she's still responsible for what is and isn't in her system. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't give you that sort of get out of jail free card, in my opinion. And also, if you're the partner, the coach, the physio,
This is what
you're
I
in
struggle
someone's
with. Yeah.
close circle. What is going through your mind
I know,
to
mate.
think
This is
I am going to take a substance that I either know or haven't bothered checking is on the banned list or not to improve my physique, where my partner is a pro athlete and her livelihood and her reputation around that depends on this. So let's just assume if the excuse is true. What were you doing, mate?
yeah,
What were you doing?
that's the thing for me that I'm really of all the scratching my head being like, yeah, mate, what are you doing? Like really,
Mm.
and you know what? Again, I am trying to be very empathetic. Maybe it was just ignorance. Maybe he didn't realize that, there's so many of these supplements available for like, prosperity or stamina or longevity, or there's
Yeah,
so many of
or
these.
just even buying a protein powder off the shelf
Mm,
that has got stuff mixed into it and it hasn't got the label on it that says that it's approved for use in pro sport or whatever. Like you've got to be responsible. You've got to
mm.
be. There's what improves your
Well,
physique? Calorie deficits and lifting weights, mate. Do that. It's better. It's easier.
well, I mean, you make a really, I think a point that I want to make as well, and that is that like doping violations have a strict liability, right? Which means it's in your system. Like Imogen Simmonds is guilty of the substance being in her system. That I don't think that is not for dispute at the moment. That the drug was found in her body, that has happened. About the degree, how much, that is a scientific thing that I do not have the answers for. So I think that we need to put that to one side. It's there. It's not a question of if it's there or not. It's not a question of is it a false positive. It's a positive test. What we now have to turn our attention to is the degree of culpability. And by that I mean for people, how guilty is she? What part did Imogen Simmonds play in this? Was it was it an intentional choice on her behalf? Was it an accident on her behalf? Was it completely unintentional, as she said with the boyfriend? Like that's now where we lie. And I think for me at least, the big thing always does come down to that is I feel very bad for her that this is happening the way it is, but I also it's there. And it was around the time of 70.3 Worlds. And I don't know if the amount was so small that it didn't make it. She came fourth at 70.3 Worlds. I'm not, again, I don't know. I don't have the answers here, but I do sort of,
And
that's one thing
this
that I
drug
struggle with.
is you've already read out at the start of the podcast the what it does, and it has a half life of 24 to 36 hours. So
Yeah.
it is a drug you can take, and it can be out of your system. You know, if you've recently had a drug test, let's say, and you think, well, I've had my drugs test, take a bit of this, get it out of my system, and I'm clear. So it's a real shame. Look, it's not a case of going. I mean, obviously, I'm pleased when a doper is caught. I'm pleased when in any case, the sport is doing things to show it is working on the cleanliness of the ecosystem. But I ain't pleased by this. It makes me deeply sad, and I don't know how to. Because like I said a minute ago, there's a person at the end of this,
Mm,
and I don't know what to think because my reflex, I'm always guilty of giving people the benefit of the doubt. I really am. In
mm,
every walk of life, I will put my trust in somebody. And my reflex is to listen to the story and feel so sorry for the take her take it as true. Imagine how she feels if that is the case. You
yeah.
found out that your partner was taking something they shouldn't have been taking around you. It's got into your system, and now your potentially career, but reputation and the opinion of those of your peers around you is in real jeopardy. And if you and there's nothing you can do. There will be people out there that will never ever believe that.
Correct.
And there's nothing she can do to convince a certain percentage of people. And so for the rest of her sporting life, she will be thought of in this light. And
Mm,
imagine what that would do to your mindset.
exactly. I think it's also interesting and worth noting that I've had a lot of discussions. I mean, I was in Taupō over the weekend. I was surrounded by pro athletes. I know you spoke with Daniel about it. I've had discussions with other pro athletes about this as well, and other people in the sport. And something that I've heard a lot with this test or this positive compared to a lot of others is it's a lot more people referring to her character. Oh, she's wonderful. I know her so well. I can't imagine she would do this. And I've not really heard that as much with other examples, like when Thomas Rodriguez tested positive, was it last year, the year before, whenever it was, last year. I didn't hear a lot of people coming out saying, I know the guy, I can't imagine him. And I find that is I can understand it, but I think that if we're trying to be objective here, we need to sort of remove I'm at a point now where I think the nicest person in the world, I wouldn't be surprised if anybody really, I'm a bit jaded,
You
right? I
can
think,
be a nice person
yeah,
and do the wrong thing.
yeah,
That's what we got to remember, isn't it? I had a chat with somebody on the phone when I was in France, a name I won't mention, but someone in the sport that we both know and talk to a lot. Um, and he reminded me of this, that you can be a nice person and do the wrong thing
yeah,
or make the wrong decision or knowingly make the wrong decision. It doesn't mean that in
exactly.
every other aspect of your life you can't be a wonderful person.
Correct.
And we have to remember that. Like I said a minute ago, I feel so sorry for her if she has done it, if this is a mistake. But then the other side is like, but if it's not, I was talking to someone else, someone who isn't
We've been
in the
discussing
sport,
this a
who
lot.
doesn't know
Yeah,
triathlon.
yeah,
And they were saying, look, if surely if you've made the decision to go down this road, you have like you have a percentage chance you're going to get caught. And maybe you just be like, well, if I get caught, I just got to go. Yeah, this is how I fess up on this one, because so many people have tried to fight this over the years, and the big stories, the Armstrong stories, the sort of Icarus stories, the stories where people deny, aggressively deny, and fight and litigate. Those haven't done us any good either, because
correct.
now everybody just thinks the harder you fight, the less likely it is you're telling the truth.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And then the people that are actually like a legitimate uh, um, reason are then not believed either. And I mean, the other thing as well,
It
and
would
I
break
don't
my
want to,
heart if I
yeah.
got, even as an age grouper, if I got dope tested and somebody was something in my system I didn't know about. It would break my heart.
The other thing that I want to mention, and I don't want to talk about because I'm actually a bit flabbergasted that the attention seems to be moving away from the actual case and moving into nonsense, is the fact that like we have examples in the past where athletes have had, A samples leaked before their B samples been tested. The example I always think of is the Australian Peter Bowl, who turned out to have a false positive, which can happen, but the information got leaked. Very detrimental impact to his career. Like I think there is also what I'm trying to say is there's a process that needs to be followed too, and I think that like with all things, and this is also probably on the ITA and those sort of things, they need to become a bit better at, or the testing agency or whoever is WADA, whoever it is, coming out and actually informing the public a bit more about those processes too. But I just think it is worth noting that a process is happening now, and
And
Well,
things not getting leaked would be nice.
yeah, I don't think, yeah, exactly. So I think we just need to remember that this is a case about an athlete and not about the stuff that happens around the sport. So,
No, no, yeah, the story is about Imogen Simmonds, the process she's going through, the
yeah,
facts around it, the people involved. That's it. That's the only thing that matters in this.
exactly.
No one else, no other personalities are relevant.
Correct. I agree. Well, look, we could talk about this for hours, and I don't think we get much further. To be honest, it's good, it's bad. We'll follow it with interest. We'll try to keep you guys up to date as things sort of. I mean, the other thing I want to say as well is, I think this is important. Just is the purpose of this podcast isn't to try to go out there and break news and find exclusives and you know. We're here to discuss things that happen. Like we made a decision when we rebranded this podcast that we're not interested in that. We don't. It's. I know that the one time we ever tried to we heard the thing about the Norwegian team run out of money and it turned out to be just not worth it. So that's just not what we're about. We'd rather sit back and watch and then give you guys our thoughts on things. And you seem to
Opinions,
like
yeah,
it. So
exactly that.
yeah. Anyway,
Exactly
Jimbo,
that.
we will
There isn't a
drop in.
journalist degree between us, is there?
Nah, nah, at all. I couldn't think of anything worse, actually, at all. No interest. I'll never study again. But what I will do is I will drop in an interview with Mike Phillips, the Ironman New Zealand champion. Uh, we'll then, I guess we'll talk about it. We haven't done it yet, but we'll be back afterwards to go through the results. Well, as we just said, we are joined by the three-time Ironman New Zealand course record holder, Kiwi professional, Mike Phillips. Mike, how you going, mate?
Hey Tim, going good? How are you?
Very well. I'm buzzing after the weekend in Taupō. It was an absolute cracker. First time, mate. I've actually been at an event where one of my guys has won the race. So thank you for that. It was a very, very pleasant experience. No, I had an absolute blast, and yeah, really, really
First and
stoked to
second
see what
too.
there was. Mate,
First and
yeah, could
second as well, so
bit of
couldn't
drama
get
as
much
well,
better.
actually. Yeah, and the way it sort of unfolded. I mean, you're probably a bit preoccupied, but um, even the commentary after you finished was saying that Jack was in second place, and we had Joe's mate out on course. He's like, no, Joe's passed him, but there was some like anxiety, I suppose. But
Was
mate, what
that
a
in
performance!
that must have been what, in the last kilometer?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it really did come down to it, right down to the wire, and we're kind of jump all around. But I know that the last time I saw you out on course, I'd given you, you'd run past, and I'd stopped to get a split from you to Jack, and the gap was 116. And as Jack came past me, there was a guy there that he was mates with, and he was saying how far behind me is Skipper. Like he was starting to worry about Joe. So I jumped on the bike, rode ahead to you, said the gap's 116. He's looking over, he's worried about Joe. And then the next time I took the gap from Jack to Joe, and I think I screamed to Joe, he's like 58 seconds and he's scared of you, mate. Get him. Like he's yours. So
That fired the dog up, eh?
it did. And
Got the dog
so
going.
it was good, but mate, like let's just talk about your performance because what a just well-rounded race. Like if you had to talk about just a triathlon performance, like where we're talking 47-minute swim, 412 bike, 240 run. Like there's no weakness there, mate. It was just a really, really well-rounded thing. You beat the course record by 10 minutes. Like how was your day? How are you feeling? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I guess for me, I've done probably similar performances in one of the disciplines or two of the disciplines at certain races, but probably never put all three together like that. Like, I mean, I think I ran 240 there before, but it was off like a 4 hour 30 bike split, whereas now it's like closer to 410.
Yeah.
But 20 minutes faster on the bike, but then still running that 240. Yeah, pretty good all round for me, I think. Like, definitely felt pretty good in all three disciplines, which is something I worked a lot on last year, I guess, is just eliminating a couple of weaknesses I had. So yeah, I mean, can't complain with that start to the year.
Exactly, and that's the thing, right? So early on, and I know because obviously I know you quite well. Like it's a relatively short build up as well. You took a bit of time off at the start of the year. You raced Tauranga relatively early off, not much training, and then did a very short build into this one. So like, were you surprised by it, or were you not? Like because of that lead up, like how did that all go for you?
Yeah, I guess with quite a long season last year, it was couldn't take I sort of took my end of season break late December, which sort of meant just getting back into training mid-January. So it was, yeah, 5 week run into this race from basically my season break. So pretty short, but a lot of the sessions were going pretty good and my body was responding pretty well. Like every week, my heart rate's coming down, the paces were getting better. the workload was going up. So yeah, I mean, pretty clear, a pretty like clean 5 weeks lead in with no real sessions missed or anything like that. So I mean, I knew my training had gone well. It's just whether that build up was actually long enough to be able to do something like that across the Ironman distance.
We were joking just before we had it record actually about you beating Joe, and I said, "Oh, you got Mike Phillips," and you said he came down to my home. What is it like? What is it about like as a Kiwi, third time winner? Now you have that course record. Like, do you feel pressure going into a home race? Like, what's it like to do that in front of the home crowd?
Oh yeah, it's obviously really important to perform at home. I've got a lot of family and friends that make the trip to come down and watch, and it's sort of their taste of triathlon for the year. I mean, we only really have one race here each year, typically. So, you only get one chance a year to perform well. So executing in front of the home crowd is always pretty cool. We definitely get a bit more attention than we get overseas. If you did do well in a race overseas, it's obviously quite far away from people here, and they don't really know what's going on. But when they can come and see it in person, it's obviously pretty special.
And what a spot for a race! Like, I mean, I've done the 70.3 myself in Taupō a few times, but that was the first time I'd been at the Ironman. And mate, it's such a great spot for a race. Like that run along the lake is exceptional. It's a really good, challenging. It's not an overly hilly bike course, not overly technical, but it's an honest bike course. Like the roads are quite dead. It's lumpy. It's got some sort of variation and things like that. Like, is that you like that sort of course? Or what do you think about the course?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool spot to have a race. The lake, just how it's orientated, the swim as well. Like everyone can watch it from the shore. It's got that kind of banked up hill from the lake, so it's just packed with people that can watch it from the start. The bike course is quite undulating, but no really long climb, so it does suit kind of pretty much any rider. It's not like it's a small man's course or a big man's course. And then the run's actually pretty difficult as well. Like there's not many flat Ks. Like there's a few flat Ks, but it's always slightly up or slightly down, and there's a few little pinches in it as well. So I think that really favors. It's kind of like a strength endurance course as opposed to
Yeah.
like a fast man's course. And I think that suits the likes of me and Joe really.
Well, I would agree, right? Because I look at you both, and you're both strong, but like I think looking at your performance as a spectator on Saturday, that's the word. Like I wouldn't say. I mean, it was objectively the fastest that's ever been done, but I don't look at it as a fast performance. I look at it as it was very much a strong performance to me. Like if I, in hindsight, you just looked strong all day, and again, you're a stone face. Like you give nothing when you're racing, but you just looked strong all day. Like was was it the same inside, or were you feeling good all day, or like because you did just look incredible.
No, I was feeling pretty good, and I guess being at the front pretty much from the start does make it a lot easier. Like I felt like I was in control. I wasn't really having to dictate and I also wasn't really worried. Like I knew I was running well, so if it came down to a run race, I was happy with that. If it was 180K solo time trial, I was happy with that as well. So it's just kind of trying to manage the race, and obviously like I knew Joe was coming from behind pretty strong, and he would just ride a solid pace, and we don't want to give back time to him just easily. Like there's a few points on the bike where the pace really dropped off, and I was like, I need to just keep this going, otherwise Joe's going to get back his 3 minutes and 20 Ks, and then we're another guy to contend with on the run. So it's just kind of trying to manage the race and put myself in the best position to win. But yeah, just being at the front and in control really meant I could do my own kind of race.
Well, let's talk through the actual race now. So yeah, like you swum front pack. You were one of the first out of the water. Like let's start with this one. How was it? What was going on? Where did how did you see the swim unfold?
Yeah, the swim, it was like glassy conditions compared to last year was really choppy. So it does make it a bit easier with siding and stuff. The water's really clear as well, so you can swim pretty much with your head down on the guys on someone's feet, and it's pretty easy. But yeah, I just took it pretty easy at the start and then swam up onto the guy that was leading's feet. And it was pretty uneventful from there. He was setting a pretty good pace, not crazy, but probably if I went around him, I wouldn't be going much faster. So I was pretty happy to conserve some energy. And yeah, we went slightly off course coming back into the shore where a few guys came up the inside. But yeah, we came out as a group. I think there was 7 or 8. And once we got to that first turn, which was sort of 800 meters in, I could see that the gap had opened to the likes of Joe's group, which was obviously important to make sure that happened. It's early in the swim, but yeah, so I was pretty happy that it was sort of seven, eight guys coming out of the water.
Then onto the bike, and I do have, I guess, some content. I've recorded a video with Joe for his JYD thing this morning. We were talking about the race, but you know, talk through the bike because I think the bike, like, you won the race on the bike, really. So, like, let's talk about how the bike leg unfolded. From again, from my point of view, you probably seem to play it a bit more conservative. I've seen you in the past sort of just go off and TT it yourself, where this one you did seem to stay with the group a bit longer until you didn't. But yeah, let's talk through the bike leg.
Yeah, there was sort of not really many gaps happening, and the pace was pretty high. Like we did the first lap in 2:03 or so.
Mm.
And there were a few guys that were doing some pretty solid pulls. So yeah, I didn't get involved too much. Just tried to conserve some energy, keep out of trouble, make sure I wasn't going to get a penalty or anything like that. But I was still pretty in control, I guess. I never really stepped into it too much. I know on that second lap, the wind always picks up. It's always a headwind for the last sort of 45K. So being strong there is a good opportunity to make some time. And yeah, so I guess the first lap, I tried to save a bit of energy. And then sort of as the pace started dropping on the second lap, I sort of got a bit more involved and tried to push on a bit. There was actually a point where one of the guys got probably like 30 seconds up the road, and I rode across to him pretty hard, and everyone followed apart from Jack. So I was still surprised that there were still like six guys then. I thought that would have been enough to break it up a bit. But yeah, the wheels really started falling off that group late on the bike, and that's when I wasn't actually trying to drop them. I was just trying to maintain that gap to Joe. So yeah, once I sort of looked behind and no one was there with 10Ks to go, I think I put the head down a bit, and I think I was able to get another minute on Joe just in that last 10K, which, starting the run with a couple of minutes if you're running 240 pace, it's such a relief. Like it takes a long time to run that down. So it pretty much means you can just settle into your own pace and not be so stressed about running side by side with a couple of other guys.
I think that it so much so that like watching the way for me at least because it wasn't covered, we were sort of following the trackers, and I know that I think you'd gone through the second last timing split, and it was pretty close. Like the gaps had come down a lot. You were in that lead group or whatever, and then I hadn't checked the tracker because I wanted to get out on the run course, and I didn't realize you had the gap you had because I've come out and I've seen like Jack Moody, I've seen some of the other guys, I see Joe and this, and I'm thinking, where the fuck is Mike? And it wasn't until I checked. I was like, what? How the fuck did you get? You got this 90-second gap, sort of, or this. You put this 90-second chunk of time into that last part, and I find it sort of similar, right, to what we saw last year at 70.3 Worlds with Taylor Knibb, where she sort of was riding pretty consistently, got into that same section of that course, and that's when she sort of did damage. So it is really become. I mean, obviously the back end of an Ironman is going to be
Yeah.
that, but do you think that the course naturally lends itself to that sort of style of racing as well?
Yeah, it's always that last sort of 20K, it starts go you sort of climb back up towards town, and it's not really steep, but it's a decent climb and it's pretty draggy, and it sort of just goes on for a while. The road's still pretty average there, like pretty rough. So obviously if you're pushing good power towards the end of an Ironman, a lot of the guys are getting tired by that point too. So it's crazy the amount of time you can put in such a short section of the course.
Really, like, it shocked me. Like genuinely, I didn't even know you were out on the. I remember going because I think where I was standing, I remember you seeing so you'd gone up to the and you turned around and then you were coming back, and I was like, "Fucking hell, he's miles ahead! Like this is amazing. This is so good." So
Yeah, it's always
yeah,
surprising because I guess even when I rode away, I like looked behind and there was the mechanic car was sitting between me and the other guys, and I'm like, oh, why are they like those other guys must be right up the arse of that car? Like, why are they in the way? Like, why can't the car just bugger off? Like, but they must actually been a wee bit back from that car. But always coming into transition, I think, I might have 30 seconds or something, and then they're like minute 45, and I'm like, what? So yeah, it's good. It means you're 500 meters up the road, right? So just gives you a chance to really settle in and not be under pressure.
well, let's then talk about the run. So, is that what happened? You did settle in. Like, how did you sort of approach the run? What are the things you're getting off the good thing with that course is you do get a few opportunities to sort of, well, not really get a couple of spots to actually spot where the other guys are at, but you sort of run around that corner, do the UE and come back. So, what is the first bit of the run like for you?
Yeah, like the course is pretty undulating there, so it's really hard to go by your watch because you might have a K that's slightly downhill and you're on 325 or something, and then the next K you sort of ease back a bit and then you're at 350. So it's it's really hard to go by your watch. You pretty much got to go by feel, use heart rate a little bit. But yeah, I just really tried to settle in. And I guess I know what I did when I ran 240 there, and I was sort of pretty confident from my training I could run a similar time. So I just really tried to do like a similar race to that. But I probably started slightly faster just to try and make sure if they were going to eat that gap away. I guess normally when I race Braden there, he's really eager to cut the gap down fast. So
Mm.
if you're running a good pace and he still catches you, then it's likely to have burnt a few matches for him, which sort of makes the back end a bit more interesting. But yeah, I just tried to try to settle in and hope that if they were going to come across, it would take some matches from them.
Well, we did see, I guess, an attack or a move happen slightly later in the race, and that was when Jack Moody, I think it was on the second lap or the third lap, where he did sort of, he got up to, I think, within about 50 seconds of you. And my first thought was, because again, I was watching the gaps with him to Joe and him to you, and thinking the at first I thought you guys were slowing down, and I didn't. Then it wasn't until I actually looked down. No, no, Jack's sped up. Jack's trying to bridge up to Mike. Like, what's I know that when I sort of saw you, I don't know whether you heard it, but it was like, no, just he's attacking, but just keep doing your thing. What was like when you realized he was sort of making a move? Is it something that concerned you? Not really. What was going through your head when that happened?
Yeah, I guess I know how hard it is late in an Ironman to change pace like that. And after, we'd run the first two laps and the gap had actually increased slightly to maybe only by 10 seconds, but it was still a minute 50 or something like that, about halfway. So I sort of thought if he's running that good, he probably would have tried to get across to me by now. And I guess I've raced Jack a lot, and even in half Ironmans, he tends to fall apart a bit towards the back end. So I guess, yeah, I was just trying to treat it as a 40K run. And if he caught me, then, I probably had another gear to respond to that. But I was just going to keep doing my own thing until he did make that catch. But obviously, I think he surged, and then it probably cost him the second place in the end. In the last K, getting passed by Joe, he was looking pretty empty by that stage. But I was also getting a bit of feedback that he was starting to look a bit tired on the last lap and stuff, and I was still feeling pretty good. So yeah, I just tried to keep doing what I was doing, and it's always hard because you get to the last lap and you kind of say you land funny with your leg, and it's like, oh, my quad's about to cramp or something, and you just don't want to mess with anything. You're like, oh shit, don't try and speed up or don't slow down, just keep going with it. Like you never know what can happen. Like even coming up that last couple K in town, that small uphill, I was like, don't look behind or don't, just keep going and wait till you get to the end.
Well, as I've sort of touched on, you are very, cool, calm, and collected when you race. Like, how much of a is that a choice? Is that something you've had to work on? Like, you really give nothing away. I know that I was talking with your partner. You gave her a high five, which we were both a bit surprised by. Like, in terms of that sort of, is it a strategy? Is it like you hear about the cyclists not wanting to even flare their nostrils when they're breathing and stuff. So, is it a bit of that? Like, is it a bit of gamesmanship?
No, I think I was just feeling in control and I really was sort of running that kind of comfortable but uncomfortable pace, but I didn't really feel like I was under a lot of pressure. So yeah, I guess I was just trying to tick the Ks off and not really focusing too much on the job at hand. Like the Ks were coming easy and I was sort of just distracting myself a bit, waving to some people and giving some high fives. Yeah, it's a long way in Ironman, so it is hard to just stay like hyper focused the whole time, I think.
And as I sort of said at the start, I think that's a good thing with this race as well. Is firstly, I mean, following you on the bike at points, the Kiwis were giving you so much support. Like there was, they really love to see a Kiwi do well. You guys have always punched above your weight in terms of sport. Like it's a bit annoying actually as an Australian always seeing Kiwis do so well. But like you definitely had that support out there. As I said, new course record, absolutely demolished it. Like not even 10 minutes is in terms of Ironman, people like on that course as well to do that time it's really, really impressive racing. At what point did like, I know I've asked you this personally, but like at what point did you start to think the record was on? Was it a conscious choice at any time to break it as much as you can? Like how much does that play into your mind when you're racing?
No, I guess the other guys were quite close, so they probably had most of my attention for most of the time. I mean, winning the race comes first, and then second is the records and things like that. But on that last lap, I did start thinking. I was like, we swam 47 something, I think, and then the bike was, I think I broke the bike course record until Joe came through and broke it by another 90 seconds or so. So And then I'm running and I'm like, this must be close to a 240. So yeah, I started doing the numbers, but it didn't really seem real to think we are going to do 745 or something. Like someone asked me, is that my fastest Ironman? I think it actually is.
Wow.
I haven't even thought about it, but it seems crazy to think you're doing that in Taupō because like when I did my first Ironman in Barcelona, like the course is so fast there. I think I did 752 or something like that, and I was just like, man, I'm gonna really struggle to ever beat that time. Like there's such a fast course, like, dead flat run, really fast pavement, like perfect conditions, sea swim, like so yeah, to do it in Taupō is really a different level, I'd say. Like that course is actually pretty slow there.
That's exact. And does that then give you confidence? Like that's the thing that I'm like looking at, going, well, fucking hell, if he's doing a 7:45 in March in Taupo, like what is the rest of this year going to look like? Like where does it give you confidence this early to be doing it? I think again, what I'm trying to say is I feel like people who follow the sport and probably check the track and see, oh, Mike's gone 7:45, like, oh, that's good. You need the context of understanding how tough that race is to understand how impressive that result is. So do you have a lot of confidence for the rest of the year off that?
Yeah, I guess last year I was actually really fit leading into the race, but my nutrition was pretty bad in the race, so that
Yeah, I remember.
obviously it was a bit disappointing. And also my swim was quite off for me.
Mm.
So last year was really like I need to close these gaps in my nutrition and the swim. So I guess all last year was about just kind of perfecting my lead into falls and just trying to close off those gaps that were leading to poorer performances than I thought I was capable of. So I guess having a break late last year and then just doing the 5 weeks with the things I learned last year, and then doing 745 is definitely a bit of a confidence boost. So yeah, just hopefully I can replicate it, even with a bit longer training blocks and do something a bit more special later in the year.
I think that, yeah, like I know that one of the things I was surprised by last year, it was I do feel like your swim was a little bit off last year. And that's why when I sort of saw that 47, I was like, okay, that's good. Like that, I think we're on for a good day here. It's funny how, obviously I follow your career quite closely, that like the little, I guess, little signs you look for. Like I always expect you to be one of the fastest bikers on course, and like I think I always expect you to be one of the the front pack swimmers. So to see you not be as far up last year, yeah, there was obviously like a gap in your repertoire, I suppose. So yeah, to see that that's been really, really rectified, and again, I think that the nutrition stuff. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, right? 7:45. So really good to see.
Yeah, and I mean, I still look at it and think, I could probably go 10 minutes faster with a few changes. But I mean, I said this the first time I won, and then it's taken me like 6 years to actually beat the record. So yeah, I mean, it's always good to be optimistic, I think, and to just look for opportunities where you can make some performance gains. So yeah, hopefully we can make a few more tweaks and get a little bit more out of it for the bigger races.
Well, let's talk about the rest of the season. What are we? What are the plans for this year now? Like, I mean, I know, but for people listening along, what are you sort of planning on? How you planning on structuring the season now?
So I guess I was kind of seeing how I pulled up from this race, but it's actually been pretty good. I think in the races where you pace it well and don't really have a blow up at some point in the run, it really makes a difference for me. So I've actually pulled up pretty good, and I was going to aim for Ironman South Africa, which is just over 3 weeks away now, so pretty close. But it gives me an opportunity to do a full. I'm obviously in good shape, so I just need to kind of tick along for 3 weeks, and then if I can get a good full out of the way early, it really sets me up to be able to give the Pro Series a proper nudge. And if it wasn't to go so well, then I can realign the sights and go after some wins in some other races, I think. I guess last year I did my first Pro Series race was Cairns, which went pretty well, and I ended up going to try the series, but it meant I had to do. I'd done 5 fulls in about 7 months or something like that, which is just great. Yeah, it's a lot of just training for fulls all year, so it is hard to do that. So I'm just trying to do it this year, but space them out, give myself a bit more of a chance to do well.
Do you think that because I don't think your experience is a unique one? I think a lot of people probably suffered as a result of the Pro Series last year. I think the two most obvious cases of that are probably Braden and Joe. Almost trying to force and chase that series a bit. Do you think that a lot of other athletes have probably learned that lesson? I know that we've got like the Magnuses and the Sam Laidlows and the Christians and the Gustav. These guys who've like we're not going to try to we're literally going to do the Pro Series and sort of focus on it. Do you think that there has been a lot of lessons learned in the last 12 months about how to structure the season?
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely hard to manage, and I guess for me last year they were all kind of like spread out 6 or 7 weeks apart, which makes it really hard because you come home, you recover, and then you've got just like 2 or 3 weeks to train, and then you're traveling again, and a lot of the time the travel's quite far, so you have to like travel, acclimatize, all that kind of stuff. So you end up spending a lot of time at airports and on planes, which is not great for your performance, especially late in the season, which I certainly found like Kona was okay for me, but the ones after that I was just really running on fumes. And I think that's just a result of a lot of travel, a lot of broken training blocks and really just a kind of messed up structure from trying to chase a series around the world. And if you do have one bad race, you're pretty much cooked, you know. You got to add in another travel somewhere and another Ironman somewhere, which is yeah.
Um, the interesting thing, because I agree, and I even know that as a spectator last year, by 70.3 Worlds in December, I'd burnt out a little bit. Like, I mean, I think that the New Zealand races were wonderful, actually. That men's race was great. But I definitely felt that fatigue. And this year we've got the T100 Grand Final, which is even later in the year than Taupō was last year. I keep flicking between Taupō and Taupō. Um, Again, like, do you see the seasons? Are they just going to continue to get longer? Is there going to be some point where everybody goes, "This is getting out of hand. We need to shorten things"? Like, as a pro, like, are you concerned about the length of the seasons these days?
Yeah, I guess last year was really long because I started with the race in Tauranga, which is early
Early
January,
January.
and then I'm
Yeah.
racing mid-December in Taupō, and pretty much racing through that whole block without a break. So yeah, I think for us that's a really long year. I think it's possible to do it quite a bit shorter than that. Like this year, you know, for me not being in the T100, it obviously ends a bit earlier. But yeah, I think some people have obviously learned that lesson. Like you saw Hannah and Braden sitting out Ironman New Zealand, which, you know, if you're going to prioritize one of the other series, I think it makes sense to miss that race with it not being part of the series. So yeah, I think there's definitely some people have changed what they were doing, especially the guys that struggled last year. So it'll be interesting. But I think there's also some new faces coming to these series too, like with the Norwegians obviously jumping in and the like. So it could actually be quite a different dynamic with who wins and that kind of thing.
Even with the T100, I think we're seeing a lot of these ITU guys. So, we've got the Haydens, Vincent Louis, Morgan Pearson, Martin Van Riel, Yellow Gaines. So we're definitely seeing that sort of that short course wave come through to the T100. And I think we were joking. I don't know if it was, but the T100 this year seems a little bit like Sam Long versus short course. Like it is this weird sort of dynamic. But I do think that the Pro Series. I mean, I kind of like the fact that we're starting to get a bit more differentiation because I did think last year seeing athletes try to chase it all was a bit, I still am flabbergasted by what Kat Matthews did last year. I thought it was, I don't know how she did it. So I think
Yeah,
this
she
year's
was sort
seen,
of the she was sort of against the rule though, wasn't she? Like a lot of
yeah,
everyone got bitten by it, but she was one of the ones that didn't. But I guess you look at like I know Kyle was thinking about doing Ironman New Zealand, but it's like ever since he just specialized and focused on T100, he's doing really well. And you know, he finished the year second, ranked second last year. So just seems crazy to try throw in these other little fish races. You know, with kind of peanuts money compared to what he could be making in the series. So yeah, I'm happy. Like I think it's a great idea for him to focus on T100 and to keep doing that. Especially with
yeah.
these other fresh faces coming in that are going to make the level rise again.
When I heard that Kyle was thinking about doing, I was like, don't do it, Kyle. Like, no, don't do this. And not from a worried about him, but like actually worried about what it would mean for the rest of his season because, yeah, I think that it would have been detrimental. The other thing that we spoke a lot about in Taupō over the weekend, not necessarily that we all sat down and discussed it, but it is the recent news, and me and James have discussed it earlier in this episode, is the Imogen Simmonds announcement or the reveal that Imogen Simmonds has the provisional suspension. I guess I want to talk. It's sort of the thing at the moment. As a pro, when you hear this sort of news, what's your thoughts like? And what is the? I mean, again, we had discussions in Taupō, but what do you sort of think about it?
Yeah, it's obviously quite disappointing and kind of alarming at the same time. It's always hard to know. Uh, like I sort of know Imo, but you know she's not the person you'd pick to be doing something like that. But you know, how do you know what the people are like that do stuff like that? So it's really hard to know
Yeah.
what people do behind closed doors. But yeah, I think there's some kind of negligence there, like not knowing your partner was taking it, and just seems kind of because it's an offense in itself to just have it in your house. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure they've had some long conversations, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of it because I know some other people have got off the hook from the same thing. But yeah, it seems a bit like you need to be take a bit more responsibility when you're a professional athlete, and those around you, like even coaches, managers, everyone gets the emails from Ironman, etc., and wider saying, their responsibilities as a support personnel. So, obviously he needs to take that a bit more seriously as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes of it.
Do you think that, I mean, this is the thing I'm interested to talk about a little bit. I don't think that we need to discuss the actual matter itself. That'll play out. But like as a pro yourself, like, how serious do you take that? Not obviously not using drugs, but like all that stuff around it. Like, how proactive are you in ensuring that those around you are, I guess not in the situation where you're going to find out your partner's, I don't know, using anabolic steroids and accidentally slip it into your, like, I don't know, like, how proactive are you about making sure that stuff doesn't happen?
Yeah, I guess it's actually, yeah, for me, my partner works at the hospital as a pharmacist. So whenever the drug testers come around, they say, "Oh, what do you do?" And she says, "Oh, I'm at the I work at the hospital." And they sort of like turn to look at her, like, "Oh my God." But yeah, and even like I don't really use any supplements or anything, so just like really should be getting that stuff tested too, or making sure that it's from, it's all getting batch tested and stuff like that. But it seems like with these doping things where there's smoke, there's fire, and normally, everyone blames contamination. It's the convenient way out, or no one just. How often do you see someone come out and say, "Oh yeah, I took that"? Like never. So now it's really hard to, that's the standard excuse. But yeah, I mean, you do have to be quite diligent, and even just being on whereabouts is quite difficult. Like making sure that you've given them an hour window any day where you'll be. But yeah, they do take it pretty seriously here, and like even I raced Challenge Wanaka, and there was no prize money this year. It was just like a invitational race, and I still got drug tested afterwards. It's like
Wow.
they're spending more money on drug testing than on the prize pool.
I think that like I look at it kind of two ways, right? I like it. It tells me because it seems like this is getting more and more. Like we're getting more and more of these cases that are coming up, and I suppose there's sort of two ways you can look at it. Where it's great that the results or the testing seems to be working, but I don't know. It's like kind of like is it because the tests are working, or if the tests always been working and more people are doing it now, or I'm not exactly sure. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
or
it's
are
like
they
this.
testing more?
Yeah, it's just like this kind of contradiction a bit where I'm kind of happy that there's more people getting caught, but I'm also sad because more people seem to be testing positive. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, but I think that yeah, I guess we'll say just I don't know. I hope there's not too much more. I mean, I'd like to believe like I did a few years ago that was a triathlon was the exception to the rule and that it's a clean
Mm,
sport, but I think we're sort of the curtain's been
yeah, I
pulled
think
back
it's
again.
kind of it's one of those things where the more money you get in a sport, the more obviously the more people are willing to risk to get a part of that money. So yeah, unfortunately, that's a part of sport at the like cycling's been through a lot of phases, but it's hard to know. Even it's hard to know now with cycling whether it's actually clean or not.
To finish up, mate, you said you're going to go 10 minutes faster in Ironman New Zealand. So next year, we're going to expect to see a 7:35. Who would you like to see on that start list next year to come and push you to break that record? Who are the people you'd love to kind of see come down and race in New Zealand?
It would have been really cool to have Peter Heinrich on the start line. Like I feel like that would have added a bit of fire to the early part of the race. Like he likes to really set a strong pace. So but yeah, after him getting hit by a car, I don't think he plans on returning to New Zealand. But no, it's a great race, and hopefully we get a strong field because it obviously helps to push the times on. But we did have good conditions as well, so it is pretty hard to expect.
Getting the excuses in early, mate.
Oh, nah, yeah. Yeah, it was fast conditions for
It was
sure.
very fast, yeah.
But yeah, never say never, I guess.
No, sounds good. Well, Mike, thank you so much, mate. Well done again. I'm looking forward to obviously seeing how you go for the rest of the year. If people want to find you, follow you, all that stuff, where do they go?
Mike Phillips NZ on Instagram is probably the best bet.
Perfect. All right, Mike. Well, thank you very much, mate. I'll talk to you later.
Go, cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Mate,
Jimbo,
you nailed that interview. That was amazing. I know so
always.
much more than I did.
Mike's a legend, and it's funny, and I'm sure I've mentioned this to him, but like when Mike races, I've been at a few races now with Mike racing, and he honestly gives you nothing. There's no, there's nothing. You can't, you give him splits and everything, and it's like, did he hear me? Did he not? Is he angry? Is he happy? I don't know. But yeah, what a just a well, just perfectly executed race. And like genuinely, Mike took a big chunk of time off at the start of the year and a really short lead time for this race, like probably a month of proper hard training. And to be at that stage this early, and again, you look at the results, 7:45 on paper. It's like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good 70 point Ironman time. This is a tough course. Like I think that one of the things that it's very difficult sometimes for people following the sport to understand is just what the results actually don't compare apples and apples. You need to, he beat the course record by 10 minutes, a course record that when Joe set it in 2020, a lot of people said would stand for 15 years. To go 10 minutes under it, yeah, it was great. So obviously we spoke about Mike. I just want to quickly acknowledge the winners or the podium in the women's race as well. You had Regan Holyoke, I believe is her name, the winner in the women's race. Yeah, Regan Holyoke. We had Jocelyn McCauley in second place and Nina Darren in third place. So
What
Jocelyn was
happened
trying to get
to
a
Fenella?
three-peat. So Fenella had a bit of a niggle in the lead up to it. She's actually gone home, I believe, to get sorted. But yeah, it was a bit of a roll of the dice. But yeah,
Yeah, man. I
really,
mean, look, Mike Phillips is a great athlete. Great to see him have that success. To go, like you say, to take 10 minutes off his record, amazing. For me, the heartwarming element of this race is the fact that not only did Mike win, but Joe came and had a really solid race. He was only 3 minutes behind Mike at the finish, therefore breaking his record as well. You
yeah,
know, he may not be the one that holds the record right now, but he's proved that he is not a spent force.
yeah,
You know, he's back. And as his quote on Instagram said, I think it was John Wick, wasn't it?
yeah.
People have been asking if I'm back, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm back. So great to see it. Love to see it.
I know that like it's funny because once the initial sort of like he's very happy and then he's like, oh, could I have gone harder? Could I have won? And he was saying that it's like he just didn't feel like he could push the way he normally does. And I said, let's stop for a second. It's been 6 months since you raced, like at all, and it's been over a year since you've had a good race. Like that's something that comes with that's something that comes with racing. Like you've got the base fitness there now. Now you start to tap it, you start to sharpen up. Joe's doing Oceanside 70.3 in a few weeks. He's got another Ironman, a couple of Ironman he's eyeing off in the middle of the year. But like, yeah, just
Yeah,
honestly,
in my opinion, the fact that he is thinking, could I have pushed harder? Could I have won it? Shows that
yeah,
he's over that hump now because he
exactly.
ain't finishing the race going, I am fucked. That was all I had. Jesus Christ.
Well, I think the thing as well, and again, I probably have much more insight into this, is we thought we identified what the problem was last year. And since that, he did Chattanooga, and yeah, he didn't have a great race, but he didn't feel bad. And then he's had this race. I think we were right in working out what the problem was. So, like I said, it's a case of, yep, cool, we've sorted that out. Let's move that to the side. Let's get back to business. And yeah, I mean, the emotional journey on Saturday, where firstly, when he was out of the swim 51 minutes, I was standing on the side of the course with some mates, and I literally like, God, like, come on. And they're like, he's 3 minutes down. I said, you don't understand. This swim could have been an hour. So the fact that it's 51 minutes was so positive, and like, Joe's whole family, that's one of the things with Joe is his mum and dad and his sisters and that they travel to a lot of the races. So there's always like this, I have this same group that I'm at all the events with. And the comms we were having where it was like, reports on the bike is good. And then you see makeup, and I remember there was this stone cold moment first lap where I was giving him and Mike splits, and I said, "Oh, you're 30 seconds back from the chasers, and probably 2 minutes from Mike." And he's like, "I'm not even worried about them at the moment. I'm just taking it easy." And I remember thinking, those thug videos where the glasses slide down on I would have loved to film it and then had that moment because he was so cool and in control. But same with Mike, just both of them. It was a very proud day for me, and I'm glad that I was there for it. So yeah, it was good, really good day. Um, I think that's going to be it for this week, mate. I'm going to, say I think we're pretty good for time. We will be doing a bonus episode. We need to do a bonus episode next week, and I actually have a lot of stuff. I want to discuss the Sam Laidlow or basically that he's not doing too well at them. I think that's going to be an interesting discussion on the bonus episode. And I think
we
we're
got a
probably
lot
going
to discuss on that bonus
yeah,
episode.
probably give some more raw thoughts about the Imogen thing and some of the other stuff. But yeah, we'll do that. So, Jimbo, if people want to find that stuff or find out more about us, where do they need to go?
If you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at T414 on Instagram, and I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram. We are on Instagram as at Talking Triathlon. And if you join the Patreon group, you get access to the monthly bonus episode and the social group and the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group has been fueling my boring week this week. We're also on YouTube. YouTube's the place. If you want to leave a comment, we'll have a chat with you on there.
Again, to be honest, I think knowing the topic last week, very pleasant, the YouTube comments.
Yeah, man, you're right. You know, I almost don't notice it anymore. The internet fucks me off, end. I mean, especially when it comes to drama, replies, everyone being a twat at each other. So it's really nice. Our little WhatsApp ecosystem with the people we've got in it. It's respectful, friendly, fun, interesting, and engaging.
Just wait till I record my my response to your comments video, James. That's when we'll have some real podcast beef.
I'll wake up tomorrow and there'll be a video, Tim Ford's response to James Bale.
With one of those Mr. Beast looking thumbnails with some punchable face on it. And no, we won't get down that rabbit hole. But yeah, Jimbo, thank you very much, mate. Have a good weekend. Hopefully the hip is okay. We'll be back next week, guys. You have already recorded next week's interview. It is with Ellie Salthouse. Obviously, that was done a couple of days ago, and then I was talking with Mike, and that's why this has happened. So we've shifted things around. But again, it's a great interview with Ellie, which will be next week. So until then, Jimbo, talk to you later.
Cheerio.